So DimDim I can also give out, it also lets you give up to 3 mics to other people at a time. And I'm not giving any mics because I don't want any choppiness in my voice. Having multiple, audios at the same time also takes up a lot of bandwidth. I found my students really use this chat stuff a lot. During my lecture, they ask questions, they make comments towards me and towards each other in this public chat window. There is a time delay, so I found the time delay is really small from when I'm working from home to where my students are, which is on campus and actually in their homes as well. When we had speakers from across the country, the time delay was more significant. The time delay from here to from my home to the students' homes and to campus is really small relative to the time delay of students to think and want to answer, I found. But I'm going to have a guest speaker from Chile later this semester for the wastewater class when we talk about developing world issues. And so I'm definitely going to be practicing ahead of time with him for that issue that you bring up.
And have you tried any other systems and DimDim? What do you think of them?
I just reading the reviews, but since I didn't know these, I can't find information online about the problems with DimDim that I encountered. I really decided that I need to try these things out for like a month at a time before I implement.
What was the reason for picking DimDim instead of something else? I mean, I think it may be a good choice. I have no idea. But
Yeah, well, it was. I like the fact that it was open source and it was being marketed towards universities. So I thought, well, maybe this is something that if I can try it and work out the kinks and see where it's good or not, then maybe it'd be something that we actually would want to take on as a community for our campus. Because that is one of their primary objectives is applying this to universities. The other thing I liked about it is that people don't have to download anything. I didn't want to have to ask my students to do anything extra. I think it would make sense to ask them to do extra things. I mean, we ask them to come to the classroom, to come from their homes all the way to campus. So if all they have to do is download some software as opposed to driving and coming here, then I think that's a pretty nice exchange. But at least for this initial application, I like the simplicity of it. I guess that's why. So I showed you, I think this is my DimDim tour here. We all together saw how to host a session. I didn't show you how to invite attendees. I did in that opening window. So far, my DimDim sessions have always had the same exact website link. So I don't know if they're going to change that at some point, and then all my students are going to email before class that they can't get to the session. But so far, they always go to the same exact link. And during a session too, if you forgot what that link is, you can go to invite. Let's see, audio and video, we talked a bit about that. Presentations, you see here, we're going through the presentation. These whoops, that's the wrong button. Well, anyhow, with these arrows down at the bottom. Chat, public and private. I showed you the public chat window, but they can also send private chat messages to each other or to me that no one else can see. The other tools are the whiteboard that looks like this, but it's white with the same tools. Screen sharing, which supposedly isn't very good, it requires a lot of bandwidth. Website share, I haven't tried that one out. That one I would think wouldn't require a lot of bandwidth because it's just telling the two computers to do the same thing on their own. But it's not something I've wanted to use yet in the class. Oh, and record, so you can record your sessions, which is pretty cool. So I just clicked the button record at the top. I'm not sure if you could see that, but it was upper left, and say, yeah, I do want to record. And what it records is the slides and your voice. It doesn't record anyone else's voice but the presenter. So I can make someone else the presenter, like my friend in Chile that's going to talk about wastewater in developing countries, and then it will record his voice. But if I have 3 other mics given out to other people and they're asking me questions and making comments, that'll be silent. It doesn't record the moving of the points or any drawings or annotations, so just slide and voice.
does it go along? So if you move a slide, it will record that motion of moving, or
Right, so it records the slides going forwards, backwards, wherever. It records your voice, and that's it. And then that is posted on DimDim's website, this streaming video. And I've read some comments online that said sometimes it gets off track. The voice loses track with the... I haven't found that problem, but I haven't thoroughly investigated this. It's something I for all my classes, I record it. I tell them if you miss something or if you couldn't make the session, you can watch it later today. And I've gone through and spot checked it and haven't yet found that problem. So maybe that's something they solved. So that's recording. And then after you end your session, DimDim emails you a link to where that's posted online, so you can watch it streaming from their website, or you can download the whole thing if you wanted to kind of archive it or have it on your own website. Theirs is pretty cool though. The way it streams is, I know sometimes when you watch streaming videos, it takes a long time for the thing to buffer, but with theirs you just kind of fast forward and rewind to any place. I'm not sure what type of file format or streaming software they use. So best practices, use the Ethernet. Best practices for me is no choppy voice. I want to avoid that. So use the Ethernet cable, use broadband. I was wondering if I did a different time of day for my class in the future. Maybe everyone on campus is checking their email around noon, which is when I have my class. Maybe if I had a class first thing in the morning when most of our community is still sleeping, except for my students, then maybe they would get better audio. You absolutely need a headset if you're going to have more than one audio going at the same time. I would say test features extensively for any of these systems before applying. DimDim is new. They just came out of their beta stage. So 2 weeks ago, I couldn't upload my presentation before class. I was, pretty bummed about that. And so, luckily, what I had done for future class was I wanted to try an asynchronous approach where I got some of the latest literature on wastewater treatment and put up a bunch of discussion board questions. So I quickly, everyone came to class and I said, well, today's class we're going to do something a little different, and I had that as backup. But man, I sure hope that doesn't happen again. I emailed the folks about it and they said, yeah, our servers went down and we're switching to this upgrade. And so, I don't know, is that something DimDim's going to keep doing in the future? I hope not. That's one of the reasons this summer I'm going to take some time away from research to actually investigate these other systems. Because I'd be happy to spend money, and this one's cheap, but I'd be happy to spend some of my funds to use something that's 100% reliable. And you need to check your presentations before a class. That's another problem I encountered where a certain type of PowerPoint format didn't work. So now I've got this template for PowerPoint that always works, so I always use the same template. Recording sessions, we talked a bit about that already. Okay, initial results. I guess we've talked a bit about some of the initial results, but I thought I'd tell you a little bit. So I did a class last semester, so I had the student reviews, which you're probably all aware of this UC Merced student review form. It's very simple, but some of the comments did address the internet. Overall the comments were positive in general, and there were a handful of comments that said, yeah, this internet thing is really cool, and there was one comment that said it would have been nice to have the teacher here in face-to-face instead.
Were these questions that you had drafted, or this was just part of the general rubric for course evaluation?
Just the general course evaluation that leaves room for a comment below. A handful of students actually in the comment below mentioned that this was really neat getting to use this tool. Oh, also another thing with the class last semester is we also work with the world's leading nonprofit in microfinance, perhaps, which is called Kiva, at least with online microfinance. And we've been able to have the president of that organization participate in the class on 3 separate occasions. And again, this is only because it's online, which was pretty cool. So the students saw the value in that. They were like, wow, this is cool. We get to meet with all these top-notch people. And I think that's what some of the more positive comments about having the online tool in the class were reflecting on that as well. Yeah.
When you set up these having guest speakers or whatever, how do you, they're the ones who are hosting the presentation then? So they're the hosts like you
Okay.
are right now. How do you organize that?
Okay, so with the Cornell professor, ahead of time, we just practiced DimDim. So we had maybe a 15-minute meeting where we kind of talked about the general issues and that we're investigating in the class and what I'd like his presentation to be. And he also was at a computer with a microphone, a camera, and just a random PowerPoint that he uploaded.
So if you wanted to participate, you have to participate through the chat like your students.
So in that case, I had his camera and my audio on. I had full audio visual for both me and him. And this was
So you're
before I
using
started
the
getting the choppiness problem. And before I decided I wanted to do, do this other approach with no video. But in the future, I would have allowed his video maybe to be on for the beginning and then turned it off. I would have turned off my audio and just had my comments and chatting, comments and questions in the chat window along with the students.
In the chat window, can you tell who posed the question?
Yeah.
So you can.
So
you can tell.
when your participants log on, they can say whatever name they want for themselves. And generally the students type in their own name.
So then you know with each comment, you have a record of
Mhm.
who was asking what question.
But if you had a problem, student, and they signed in as some random name, they could put, bad comments up there. And you can kick out any participant you want. But yeah, and as the internet does allow shy students to come forward, and it might allow these kind of problems to happen too. I haven't encountered those, but. And then with the president of Kiva, we used a Skype conference. Because in that one, well, actually we used DimDim too. The students were presenting to him. And we used Skype because we wanted to have we wanted to have me talking from my home, him talking from his office, and the students, which they all meet together in this case. This is a different version. All the students come to this classroom together. We wanted all our voices to be heard at the same time, and I think that Skype gives a higher quality voice over the internet without these choppiness problems. Also, we have a speakerphone that connects to the computer, just something you can buy from Logitech for like $80. And you couldn't do that with DimDim. You couldn't have a room of people unless they were all on their own computers with headsets.